Hallelujah. Good evening, good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whomever you are. Welcome back to Voice in the Wilderness. I'm your teacher for this hour, Maxie. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you have been enjoying our teachings here at the Handwriting of Jehovah Ministries. We are in this fascinating teaching, this topic having to do with the Satan, the devil, whatever you call him, the wicked one, the evil one, the accuser of the brethren, all these titles, all these labels that have been given to him. And I want to look at this entity from a different perspective. Again, here we deal with perspective, having the correct perspective. What do I mean by having the correct perspective? We believe that the correct perspective is a top-down perspective, is looking at things from above and looking into things from above, from that God position. Not that I am a God or you are God or we are gods. No. But trying to draw into his perspective what he sees, what he means, what he is saying when he says what he's saying. Right? That's what we talk about, having the correct perspective. If we go with what he told Isaiah, my ways, he says, Jehovah says, my ways are not your ways. My thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are higher. My thoughts are higher. Everything Jehovah does, everything God does, is from that higher perspective, that higher dimension. So if he is operating in that higher dimension, in order to understand him, it is incumbent upon us, it is important for us to get up to that high dimension in our thinking, to see what he is saying when he says things. And God says a lot of stuff that we have yet, after centuries, after scholars, after scholar upon scholar, and all kinds of applications have been brought into the Bible, the Hebraic text, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, and all the archaeology, and all the seminary tools, and all the things. If we think about the depth and the width and the extent of study that we as a human race have applied to the biblical narrative, it's astounding to me sometimes to think that it's so easy for us to miss things. And I'm not saying I don't miss anything. I'm not saying anybody here don't miss anything. We like everybody else. We miss things. But the one thing we endeavor and the one thing we focus on, and I think that's the only thing that could set anybody else apart, could sanctify anybody, if you will. Because that's what setting apart means. Sanctifying. That's what holy means. To set apart. Right? To sanctify. God, Jehovah, is set apart. He has sanctified himself. And if he is set apart and he has sanctified himself, then so we are to set up. He said, be ye holy as I am holy. And I think the only way that we could set ourselves apart the way he would like us to is for us to put ourselves, to bring ourselves, to take ourselves, to carry ourselves in that high place that he is. And I'm reminded of the proverb or the topic or the little saying that I've heard through my years of going to church. You don't be heavenly minded and not be any earthly good. And some people are so heavenly minded that they're not any earthly good. That's not what I'm referring to. I want us to be heavenly minded and be heavenly good on earth. You know, like Yeshua taught his disciples to pray, taught us to pray. Your will be done in earth just as it is in heaven. So we have all these things to pull on, to tug at, to pull ourselves up and in and push ourselves beyond, that I think it's not too much to ask. I think even with Yeshua, when he says, take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I think when you think about that, you know, that makes it easy, is if we try to see things from his perspective, not from my perspective, not from the human perspective, right? And again, like I said, over the eons of time, the passages of time, as old as you are, as old as humanity is, we have pulled and tugged and torn and dug and shredded the biblical narrative, and still a lot needs to be done. A lot needs to be said. That's the power of the living word of Yehovah. The word is ever alive. It's living. It might seem dead in the winter time, but let a little time pass. Let a little season change, the weather change, and here comes the word again. It's coming back more vibrantly, more colorful, more lively than any time before. So, if you have been following us for any length of time, you would know that's where we sit. That's the position we take in this ministry. We take this position not to look down on people, but to help, to be of some kind of help, to bring some kind of sanity to everything that's been done, said and done. Yeah, and I say the word sanity because when you think about the world and you think about people and you think about life and you think about things that has happened and the things that probably going to happen and the things that is happening, it's you know, you might think it's kind of crazy out there, right? You know, I'm reminded of the Game of Thrones series, and that episode in the Game of Thrones when they was bringing the dead, they captured the dead, one of the dead people. It's like, you capture a dead person. I mean, the depths we go out in our minds, with our mental faculties, it's amazing. You know, when John and his boys went up in the North Pole or wherever they were in the cold, and they captured the dead man and they brought him to show it to Cersei, to try to get her to understand. Listen, this is not I am not your enemy. You are not my enemy, at least for now. Isn't that amazing? The enemy is not. We are not enemies. There's another enemy. Listen, man, I don't know if you guys' minds are wrapped in the word, and in this particular series, this is like the 8th part to this series. A look at Satan, the devil, the adversary, you know. To think that these things are depicted in movies, in on the TV, in books, in life. To think that these things are depicted. And John and Daenerys Targaryen, who's fighting to be Queen of the Andals and Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and got in league with John, and John, confident in who he is, decides to go out there, capture a, I'm telling you, capture a dead person just to show this other queen who is as wicked as can be, who just only looking after herself and her family. I want you to think about what's going on in the world today, about people in politics and people who in the neighborhood and people who that among you who may have the same kind of mentality, just looking after themselves and their own. You know, they don't really care too much about you if you're not part of the family. You know. And they capture this dead man, or this dead, whatever it was, person, this dead being, this dead human, to show Cersei, Queen Cersei, that I'm not your enemy, you're not my enemy. This enemy here is, we have to deal with this enemy. Even in 1 Corinthians 15, we talked about this in this series. The last enemy is death. Well, John went and captured a piece of death and brought it to show Cersei. Death is the real enemy. And in that scene, in the broken down Colosseum, if you will, when Cersei demanded his fealty, and he was like, well, I can't give you my fealty because I already pleaded fealty to Daenerys, whom he happened to be in love with at the time, who Daenerys didn't even realize that that's what he was going to say. Anyway, long story short, when John tells Cersei that he cannot give her his allegiance because he's already pledged allegiance to Daenerys, Cersei got up and walked off. She walked out to meet him because, you know, people who knew John in the series knew that John was like his father. He was a righteous man, a man of integrity and character. I'm telling you this. Are you all hearing God? Are you all hearing the Spirit of God, right? And she knew that the things John was saying would be true because of who he was and his character. He has already said that in his life, as part of his life, as who he was as a person. And so she knew when he said that, she knew that that was true, and that teed her off, and she walked out meeting. But what I'm trying to get at is what John said after Daenerys left, after in his conversation with the little man. What's his name? The hand of the queen, the little short man. When the man said, "Listen, I like that you bend the knee to Daenerys, but can you lie a little bit? Do you know how to lie just a little?" See? Lie just a little. And John's response was what I want to get to. These are the little things when I look at movies and sitcoms and anything like that. These are the nuggets. These are the things that I hold on to. Okay? John said that when enough people tell lies, words, I want you to hear this. When enough people tell lies, words begin to lose their meaning. All of a sudden, words don't mean anything no more. So you can't say nothing no more. And that's where we are in the world today. Who do you believe? It's like, whose report do you believe? Whether it's CNN, Fox, whether it's CNBC, MSNBC, it's Sky News, it doesn't matter. Whether it's my news, your news, it doesn't matter. How do you arrive at the truth? This is where we are today. Humanity is in such disarray that most of humanity, has lost the discernment to the idea, the ideal, the capacity, if you will, to discern what's true and what's not. And I am here to say that I am sticking to the biblical narrative, come hell or high water, because the biblical narrative is the only way for us to get to the truth as far as our existence in this world, as far as who and is there a God, to answer all these questions. And there are people out there who are going to say, I cannot believe the Bible because the Bible has been written by man. Is a man wrote the Bible, or 66 men, or 37 men, or how much of a men it was who wrote the narratives in the Bible. I don't care. Why? Because these men, 66, 37, how many of them, when you filter through all the stories, there is still one thing that you can hold fast to, is this: God exists. Humanity did not appear from a burst of air or a blast of sunlight or a burst of steam or heat or whatever it is. It's no way. That's so mystical and ludicrous. It's a shame that people would even think about something like that. To see the brilliance, right? Let's just talk stupidly, if you will. Let's just speak flat off in human terms. When you look at the brilliance of the human mind, when you look at the capacity, when you look at the brilliance, let me just say this. When you look at the brilliance of the human mind, of the human body, of the human creativity, there's no way you could look at yourself in the mirror and say, you came from a puff of smoke or a puff of dust or a rock that was cracked, or two rocks coming in opposite directions at 2 million miles per hour and smacked into each other, and poof, all of a sudden you came out of that. You cannot tell me that at one time you were crawling on your belly around the dirt somewhere, and millions and trillions and quintillions of years pass, and you, from crawling on your belly, eating dirt or whatever, you evolved into this magnificent, listen, out of the world creature. If you believe that, something wrong with you, man, woman, girl, boy. Something is completely wrong with your mental faculties. I don't know any other way to describe it. To me, it's the most ludicrous idea that anybody could put forth, to tell somebody else. I don't care what school, because when you think about what I said 2-3 minutes ago about people saying, well, I can't believe the Bible because man wrote the Bible. Listen, mankind has written everything. Mankind has written everything, except when you read Moses' narrative about the 10 words, the 10 matters, the 10 commandments. You hear Moses saying, I didn't write that. God told me to make, God cut the 2 tablets. The first time, God made the 2 tablets of stone, and God wrote the 10 words with the finger of God. Moses, who is credited with writing the first 5 books of the Bible, Moses is testifying, I didn't write that. He did. God did. Jehovah did. So, from my knowledge, the little bit that I have, that's a testimony by itself that nobody could dispute. That the person who is credited with writing about the God of the universe, the person who is credited with so much knowledge about the God of the universe, said himself, that stuff, I didn't write that. That God, I went up on the mountain and God wrote them things and gave them to me. God did that. And if Moses if he could testify that, you know what? I could believe that. You know why? Because the way the human mind is, the way the human being is, we like to take credit for something that we do. Something. And if we're not taking credit in a prideful manner, we still will be given credit by somebody else. And Moses, like I said, has been given credit by a lot of people for what he has written about God. But the people who have given Moses credit in this particular instance, when it comes to these 10 matters, they even said, Moses said he didn't write that. God wrote that with his own hand, with his own finger. As a matter of fact, that's where the name of this ministry emanates from. That's what it emanates from. The handwriting of Jehovah. That's why we pay so much attention to the biblical narrative. If Moses could say he didn't write that, then I could believe Moses. Simple as that. And that's what I believe. And if Moses say he didn't write that, the creator of the universe wrote that, then I could believe that too. And so there are things that's in the earth realm. There are things that are there for us that we can believe. You know why? Because we believe all the other crap. All the other crap we believe. Right? We believe all the other crap. And think about the kind of things that we believe. Okay. You want to do something and you quote unquote want good luck. What do a lot of people do? They knock on wood. Now what in the world is knocking on wood going to do for you and that process that you're trying to accomplish, that thing that you're trying to do, or that place you're trying to reach, or whatever it is that you just knock on wood with the hope that knocking on wood is going to cause you to get somewhere? We believe that. There are people who will say it, and when they're saying it, they will knock on wood. And there are people who will do sundry other things. Sundry other things. With the idea that by saying those things or doing those things, it will help them accomplish whatever it is they think they need to accomplish. So, if you fault me for for having a belief in God just based on that simple thing, then what can I say? But that's my right. It's also your right to either believe along with me or not believe along with me. And I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm absolutely not. I'm not going to hate you for it. I'm going to hope that at some point you could understand and come in and maybe believe like me or like us here at this ministry. If not, no problem. And so we are in this study. I went all day, right? We are in this study about this entity called the devil, Satan, the enemy of our souls, the accuser, the perjurer, the adversary. And we've been looking at this entity through different words that he's associated with. We looked at serpent, we looked at enemy, and we have been looking at the word adversary and Satan. And just so you know, it's the same word. Adversary in the Hebrew is Satan. That's what the word means. That the Satan is an adversary, right? Satan is not a name per se, like the name of a person or the name of the name of an entity. It's a description, right? The description is an adversary. He is an adversary. She is an adversary. She stands in opposition to whatever. Right? In this case, you stand in opposition to God. And what we have been looking at is who is standing in opposition and who is the one who is coordinating things. We know from the biblical narrative, he has said it through and through, over and over, time and time again, that God is God over the whole universe. He is king. He is God. There is none like him. There is none beside him. He doesn't seek after the counsel of anybody else. He follows the counsel of his own will. He did all the creating, right? As the Genesis 1 narrative has testified to. And we talked about that. He is the one who looked down. There was nothing. He is the one who spoke. He is the one who began to create. He is the one who put all things in perspective. He claims it. He says it. And he's put everything up against it. And nobody could defeat him. Nobody. He has said it over and over and over again. And I agree with that. I agree with his narrative. I agree that there's nobody could defeat him. He knows the end from the beginning because he knows exactly how things are going to end up because he knows exactly what he did in the beginning. It's simple, right? It's a man with a plan. And if you are an architect and you build buildings and you build buildings and you're an engineer and you build structures and stuff, you know what you're building from the beginning. You build, you create, you put it on paper, and then you get materials and you put all that together, and then what you have on paper is now come to life. It's right there sitting on a piece of property or sitting on it's on the lake or wherever it is. And we talked about all of that throughout this series, right? We're still talking about God. We're still talking about Jehovah as the main character, the main entity, the main person in this whole scheme of things. And if he declares he is undefeated, he will never be defeated. There is nothing beside him. He stands alone in everything. He does everything. Then the enemy or an enemy or any kind of opposition that we may face or may want to face or may think is there is not really important. What is more important is our perception. And we come right back. We went all in a big old circle through Daenerys and John and all that to come back to this point about how we perceive things. How we perceive things. It's all about perception. There's a saying, perception is what, 9/10 of reality, or if not all of some people's reality, right? The way you perceive something, the way you see it, the way you deem it, the way you understand it, that's how it's going to play out. That's what it is to you. It's real to you in that way. So if you think Satan, the devil, whatever he is some real person or some real entity out there trying to kill you, then that's you're gonna operate like that. And I'm not denying that might be true. What I'm saying is, if your perception with God is clear that he is undefeated, he cannot be defeated, he will not be defeated, no matter what happens, and it is written everywhere in the biblical narrative, then why am I focused on that other person over there who's trying to defeat me? All I have to do is to align myself with him. Because if I align myself with him, he's already defeated. He's a done deal no matter what he does. Right? And that's what I'm talking about. In everything we deal with, everything we do in this ministry is on that route, is going on that road. We are with God, and regardless of what else happens, where else, whether it's real or not, we are not going to give it that much attention, because he is God. And we with him. I was talking to some friends yesterday or Friday, and I was like, it's like growing up in the neighborhood. If you have a big brother and you living in a not so good neighborhood, you walking down the road with your big brother, you feel safe because that's your big brother. Especially if he could fight and could defend himself and stuff. You know? You don't worry about who's, whatever. That's your big brother. Right? So, if you could operate like that under the auspices of your big brother, how much more? How much more would you operate if you were on God's side? Like the writer says in the letters in the epistles, who can separate us from the love of God? And the list is long. I can't remember the list, the specific things that's on that list. But add whatever you want to add on that list. Who can separate you from God? Who? The devil? Satan? Can he do that? But we pay so much attention. We have so much energy and so much fixation on that. It's ridiculous. And that's what I'm talking about. We have to change that perception. We have to hold on to the perception that we are on God's side. God is on our side. If God says, if you're for me, who can be against me? If I'm for you, who can be against you? And we're going to deal with all of that in this topic. We have been dealing with all of that. In any topic in our series of teachings, This is the road that we walk on in each topic. Stop looking at these foolishness. Fix your eyes on him. Hold on to his perspective. Get his perception of things, and keep moving in towards him in his direction. And you don't got nothing to worry about. Yes, we are human beings, and we have a tendency to worry when things are not going right, and so on and so on and so on. I'm not making light of those things. I'm just saying the more we keep our eyes on him, and you could talk about story after story after story in the biblical narrative that upholds that truth. It's a truth that cannot be denied, that would not diminish, that cannot be erased, cannot be shrinked. You can't destroy it. And so last week, we looked at the two passages in, I think it's First Chronicles, I'm trying to get it, 21 and 1, and let me just go there instead of going. First Chronicles 21 and 1, and 2 Samuel 24, I think it is. 2 Samuel 24 and 1. And we looked at those two stories, right? We're talking about the adversary, the Satan. We're talking about the devil. We're talking about Satan from the perspective of the way he is taught about, the way people talk about him like he's this big deal. And I'm trying to say, even if he is this big deal, he's not operating on his own. Nobody is operating on their own. He is operating on instructions. Yeshua told him, we covered this in Matthew 4. You have to worship Jehovah your God. And only to him shall you do. You can't serve yourself. Nobody is going to serve themselves. If you're not for me, you are against me. And if you are against me, you will serve me on that side. I will use you to get those who are on my side, to get them straighter and straighter and straighter. To get them better and better and better. I will use you as a pruning tool. He says, I will chastise you by the rod, with the rod of men. So Jehovah himself uses this idea that he's in control of everybody and everything to drive those who want to be with him, those who have a desire to be with him, those who understand the importance of being with him on his side. He uses everything else to cause that to happen. So why are you worried? What are you worried about? If you say you believe him. I was listening to an interview a couple days ago with, and the interviewer was asking this scholar, the Dr. James Tabor, about angels and demons. Do they really exist? And Dr. Tabor was saying that, again, it's all, you talk about UFOs, Well, if angels do exist, Dr. Tabor was using the idea about the words, right? And how words are misused. It's not really angels. That's not really the correct word. It's messengers. It's malak, malak Yehovah, right? Malak Yehovah, a messenger of Yehovah. In 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians, Paul talks about the malak, Satan, a messenger of Satan. Well, Satan, the adversary himself, any adversary is a messenger. And any adversary is somebody that is sent. And we see many depictions in the biblical narrative that God himself, if you put yourself on the side of God, if you claim God as your God, if you say, I believe in Jehovah, I believe in Yehovah, I worship Jehovah, I give him honor, I live my life for him and all. If you say all these things, but your actions and your deeds prove something else, you will be chastised. He's going to take you to task. And the way he do that is by sending messengers. A prophet is a messenger. And if you want to say an angelic being is a messenger, then so do I believe in angels? Absolutely. I believe in messengers. I believe God's will. If God really wants to get a message to you, and that's the only way he can, he will. As if there is such a thing with God as the only way I could do that is this. There's no such thing with God. Can do anything he wants, right? But if he wants to send an angelic being, a messenger to you, he will. And if that messenger comes to you in an adversarial manner, he's still a messenger. Might be a messenger of goodwill, but if he comes to you, asks, what's his name about? Asks, what's his name? Balaam. Baal-alam. Ask him, however you want to say it. The messenger is described as the Satan. The messenger here in 1 Chronicles 21 is described as Satan. In 2 Samuel 24, guess what? The narrator there, the writer there says, God, Jehovah had an ought against Israel. So, when we go to Job, what happens? There's a spirit that comes around, and God addresses the narrator there addresses his the narrator there in the Job narrative says that's an adversary or a Satan. And so the Satan, the adversary, have a conversation with Jehovah, or vice versa. Jehovah have a conversation with him. Hey, what you doing here? Where you been? Oh, you look like you're looking for something to do, like you're looking for some mischief to get involved in. Have you considered my servant Job? Yeah. And we saw what happened there. So is God the adversary? Well, I'm saying to you, if you're not operating right, if you're not acting right, God will be an adversary to you. He said it. If you operating right, I will be an enemy to your enemies. And I will be an adversary to your adversaries. But when you operating wrong, I would be an adversary to you. I would be an enemy to you. It's all over the biblical narrative. I don't know why we go at lengths to clean up God. We try to depict God as this absolute, and he is. And that's why we shouldn't try to create a perfect God, because he is a perfect God. You don't have to create him. You don't have to create a perfect God. He is a perfect God. So you don't have to try to decipher what he says and make somebody the bad person or the evil person and make God the good person. We don't have to do that, because he is good. He is good. You can't make him good. There is nothing we could do, you or me or anybody else could do, to make God good or perfect or upright or righteous. You know why? Because that's who he is. That's in his DNA. Those things emanate from him. You know what else emanate from him? Anything opposite that. Anything that needs to oppose something, he does it too. So yes, God himself will be your enemy, my enemy, anybody's enemy. If you or me or anybody is operating in a way that doesn't please him, is operating in a way that's against what he is trying to accomplish, trying to do, or trying to establish. It's simple. So this devil, this Satan, this enemy that we all so quote unquote highly esteem, it's bad on us. It's poor judgment on us to esteem him the way we have been. God is the one we are supposed to hold in the greatest esteem. And if we have to have fear for any entity, Jehovah is the entity we have to fear. He is the one we have to fear. Anybody else could take a back seat. And in closing last week, we talked about there's another narrative in, where did we go? 1 Kings 22, right? And we'll continue there. Almost an hour's gone, and I'm now getting to read, which is what I like. I like people to read. I like to read. There's nothing like reading the words coming off them pages. I'm telling you, it's nothing like it. You know, I have talked about the words, and I've talked, you know, if you know the word, you would hear it coming out my mouth, even in that whole 49-minute segment that just passed. But now we're actually going to read 1 Kings 22. Right? And that's the narrative we spoke about in closing last time we were here. We talked about this narrative, about this lying spirit, right? And to refresh our memory, we want to go back there, and I want to skip down just to regurgitate some of the things we talked about. We talked about the king of Israel, right? Who was, in this story, is unnamed, right? But we know in the end of the story, we know it was Ahab, right? And the king of Judah, who is named in the story in 2 Kings 22, that's where we are. We know that king is Jehoshaphat. And if we go to the beginning of these two kings, we would see exactly who they were, right? Jehoshaphat was good because he followed after his father David. He did good. He was a good king. He was considered a good king. Ahab was an evil king because he did not do right in the eyes of Jehovah, as in opposition to Jehoshaphat, right? So we have a good king who was a king of Judah in Jehoshaphat, and an evil king who was a king of Israel in Ahab. And it says in the story, in the biblical narrative, in 1 Kings 22, that Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, went to visit king of Israel, Ahab, the king of Israel. So we know his name, so we could call him that. In verse 2 of 1 Kings 22. And so at the time, the conversation was about Ramoth Gilead. Ahab wanted Ramoth Gilead. Ahab was saying, Ramoth Gilead, come on, you know that's supposed to be part of our kingdom, right? But there's somebody else ruling over there. So don't you think we need to go over there and conquer Ramoth Gilead? It's kind of paraphrasing it. And Jehoshaphat said, hey, I think that's a good idea. Let's do that. However, before we do anything, can we inquire of Jehovah? Can we inquire of Jehovah to find out if that's something that we should do? Right? I mean, again, and just let me say this here parenthetically, because I took this note and I want to express it. I think a lot of times, particularly in this modern era, we have taken for granted the idea of a king and what a king is, and the power and the authority that a king has, right? I think we have taken that for granted in a tremendous way. Okay, so much so, and one of the reasons could be is because we have less kings, quote unquote, today than we've had in the past, right? For instance, in the time we're talking about in the biblical passages, going back to Genesis, we read the narratives and we see king of Sodom and king of Gomorrah and king here. There were so many kings. It was incredible, right? And when we compare this time to now, we don't have as many kings. We don't even have a king of England. We have a queen of England, right? What do you have? A king of Spain, I think. And we have some other countries that still use that idea of a king, right? Maybe some African countries. I think there is a king of Spain, as I said before. And there are kings and queens and lords and all these things, strewn across the world, right? In terms of quantity. It's not a whole lot, right? And I think that's one of the main reasons why we have taken for granted this idea of the real authority, the real power, if you will, of a king, or being in that kind of a position, to be king over a kingdom, right? And so here we have two kings getting together under the same auspices for the same thing, which is all good and fine. But remember, these two kings are different characters, different personalities. One is a good king and the other one is evil and wicked. Okay? And it's the evil, wicked king who came up with this not so bad idea. It's like, hey, Ramoth Gilead belongs to Israel. It belongs to us. We are brothers, right? Yeah, you're king of Judah and I'm king of Israel. But Judah and Israel have maintained some kind of a brotherly relationship, some kind of a family relationship, because by right and in truth, they should be united. They should be one kingdom, right? But in this case, they're divided. And so, and once upon a time, they were united, right? And so, but this good king now is saying, hey, I'm with you. You know, what I have is yours. What, you know, my man is your man. Let's get together. But before we do that, do we have somebody who we can say can go solicit or go inquire from Jehovah? Because this good king, Jehoshaphat, even though he's a king, he understands that above him reigns a greater king, if you will. You know, whereas Ahab, on the other hand, he is a king and he recognized no other king in terms of above him. You know, he doesn't pay allegiance to any other king over him. He doesn't bow himself down to the God or the king that he should recognize, parenthetically speaking. And so, but it was his idea, which according to Jehoshaphat thinks is not a bad idea at all. Let's do this. So, Jehoshaphat rightly says, let's get somebody to go inquire. And the king of Israel, what he does in verse 6, gathers all the prophets together, right? It just describes this group as the prophets, right? Which are about 400. So are these the prophets that Elisha had to deal with at some point? It could be. I don't know. I haven't studied through that part of it to figure out. That's kind of not where I'm trying to go, right? So I'm trying to stay with the narrative that I want to stay with. Not that other narrative is not juicy and significant in itself. But it's 400, and it's kind of ideologically nice that it's 400 men, 400 prophets per se, right? And he asked them, should I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or should I refrain? He asked the question, right? And in these times, we understand what the prophet was. We understand who the prophet's supposed to be, right? I wouldn't go into the role of the prophet and all that good stuff. The prophets, if we read the narrative, like chronologically, seem to say immediately after, go up for Jehovah, for Elohim, for God, Adonai will deliver it into the hand of the king, right? So these prophets, 400 of them, by the way, all seem to say the same thing, right? No, that's witnesses right there. That's a lot, right? If you're a king and you have 400 prophets available to you to say what thus says Jehovah, and you ask and they say go up, Jehovah says, that's some confirmation right there. 400 prophets, right? Excuse me. Now remember, we are talking about the Satan Adversary, right? That's what we're talking about, right? So that's what these 400 men told Ahab. Remember, Ahab is a wicked king. Okay? Did nothing right in the eyes of the Lord, in the eyes of Jehovah. So we cannot negate that. We can't set that as, we can't not set it aside. We can't excuse that. We can't say, well, we don't want to look at that. We have to hold that, even though we're holding it on the side, we have to hold on to it. Right? Verse 7, Jehoshaphat says, okay, all these prophets say the same thing. It seems like he doesn't quite agree. Or maybe it's not sitting right with him and, maybe whatever is in the pit of his stomach or whatever we say, Because, we human beings, we finicky, we say stuff. We like, I don't know if I want to go along with 400 prophets. I want some kind of opposition. I want somebody to be able to stand up and say, no, I don't think so. And that would give me a little bite, a little avenue to kind of weigh in my own head whether I should or shouldn't. Right? So this king, Jehoshaphat, seems to invite some kind of opposition. He's not just going to go along with everybody, even though that seems to be like the right thing to do here. Right? Maybe Jehoshaphat is holding on to the fact that this king, he's a wicked man. He's an evil man. So I can't really take too much into what his people says. You see what I'm saying? We don't know people. We don't know. But I'm just throwing things out there that's unwritten, right? Because we're trying to get this picture of what is going on with these two kings. Jehoshaphat insists that he needs to hear another voice. 400 people agreeing to the same thing, man. It's not easy to overcome that, right? So, the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, verse 8, there is yet one other prophet, one other man. You don't even call him a prophet. You call him a man. There's one other man, one other human being by whom we may inquire of Jehovah. There's this other person I know. His name is Micaiah, the son of Imlah. But I'm telling you straight up, I don't like him. I hate, the word here is hate, which is pretty strong language. I hate him. Why? Because he doesn't prophesy nothing good when it comes to me, he doesn't prophesy nothing good. He only prophesies evil. Well, why you think so, Ahab? Maybe because you evil. Maybe because he just doesn't go along with it with you and your ideals and your ideologies and just doesn't go along with your plans. Maybe he's an adversary. See? Maybe he's a Satan for a reason. Oh, there you go. You call Elijah a Satan. The word means adversary. And from Ahab's own mouth, this prophet Micaiah is an adversary to him because he doesn't go along with anything that Ahab says. Doesn't prophesy anything. He opposes him all the time. And that's why Ahab saying, I don't like him, I hate him. So we get this idea that an adversary is an adversary. That's what he is. He just opposes things. Doesn't make him good or bad. It means he opposes. He works for somebody who has an idea of opposing an ideal or a measure or an entity for whatever the reason. So the king of Israel called an officer or a messenger or an angel That's what the officer is. He says he called an officer, but he's sending the officer as a malak, as a messenger. And said, quickly, get Micaiah, the son of Imlah. So he sent him on a message. What's the message? What's the errand? Go get Micaiah. Maybe he sent an officer because he sent an officer to arrest him? No, not to arrest him, but to maybe arrest him and bring him for this particular purpose. Not like he committed a crime or anything, but just to apprehend him and make sure he comes back here with Micaiah. Okay? He said, now the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, they sat down on the throne and they arrayed in their robes and whatever. And Zedekiah, the son of Hananiah, made himself horns of iron and said, wait, how you can make yourself a horn of iron? You're a smith. That means you're a blacksmith, right? So this blacksmith, Zedekiah, made himself a horn of iron and said, Jehovah says, with these you will push the Syrians until they are consumed. So Zedekiah is operating in this prophetic realm. And Zedekiah is a blacksmith. Takes me to the script here in Isaiah, which says, I create the blacksmith to put the coals in the fire, to bring forth an instrument for his work. I created the waster to destroy. See, that's Jehovah. That's Jehovah. That's Jehovah speaking. Right? So here is Zedekiah, who is operating in the prophetic. He might be among the prophets. I don't know. But the way that they single him out as an individual may mean that he wasn't part of the 400. Right? It could mean that he was part of the 400 and he got something specific to do. And he did it. And he said, with these, you will push the Syrians until they are consumed. With these horns, metal horns, right? Okay, horns of iron. Verse 12. All the prophets prophesied so, saying, go up to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, for Jehovah will deliver it into the hand of the king. Verse 13. Remember, he had 400 prophets, all of them prophesying, maybe in different ways, but saying the same thing. Right? Now, verse 13 go back to the messenger, the officer. Remember in verse 11, in verse 9, the king called an officer. And so the officer is now a messenger. And the messenger who went to call Micaiah in verse 13 spoke to him. Did the king tell the messenger to tell Micaiah anything? We didn't see that previously. Where did the messenger get these words from? I don't know. You don't know. The narrator who's writing the story didn't tell us. But the messenger got to Micaiah and all of a sudden he started to talk. Okay, here's what's going on. We have a situation where the king of Israel and the king of Judah is planning to go and take back Ramoth Gilead. The 400 prophets over there, they all agree that the Lord say go. They all say the Lord is going to give us victory. You better not go there and say anything different, okay? That's what he, paraphrasing, that's what he kind of said. Micaiah answers, as Jehovah lives, whatever Jehovah says to me, that I will speak. Wow, that's an awesome answer, right? That's how a prophet should be. Like, no, I promise you to say nothing. No, bro. Whatever God wants me to speak, that is what I will speak. I ain't agreeing with nothing that you say or anybody else say. I'm going to agree with whatever God says. If you're a prophet, if you're a real prophet, that's kind of how your mentality. That's the kind of persona. That's your character. This is how you should be. Verse 15. When he came to the king said to him, Micaiah. It's like, yo, the king kind of apprehensive, maybe, kind of like, I don't know what is going to come out of this man's mouth. But I'm going to ask you the same question I asked everybody else. Shall we go up to Ramoth Gilead to battle? Or shall we forbear? Micaiah answered him and says, go up and prosper, and Jehovah will deliver it into the hand of the king. So, you have got to see the irony. You have got to see the beauty. You have got to see the stupidity, if you will, in what is this process here. Ahab is a wicked, evil king who has not done anything right in the eyes of Jehovah. Ahab has said, this prophet is not going to prophesy anything that in my favor. That's why I don't like him. That's why I hate him. Yet the prophet comes and prophesy in his favor. Here is Ahab's response. Verse 16. How many times do I have to adjure you that you speak to me nothing but the truth in Jehovah's name? Think about that. Think about those words for a minute. Even Ahab, as evil and wicked as he is, recognizes that Micaiah is agreeing with him, is agreeing not with him, but with the 400 prophets in sending him to battle under the auspices of Jehovah, that he will have victory. Even the wicked, evil Ahab recognizes, something is fishy about this. You never did this before. I don't believe you. You always go against me. In this case, you didn't go against me, but you encouraging me? Nah, Micaiah. Something ain't right. Right? And listen, one of the things, as I said before, when I said that we have in many instances, we have neglected or we have taken for granted the authority of a king. A king, man, is a trip. A king, unlike a president or a prime minister or any military ruler or leader, a king could summarily have anybody executed without question. That's the kind of authority a king operates in. Listen, a king is completely different from a president or a prime minister or, a governor or a ruler of any other kind. When you're a king, man, it's unbelievable the kind of authority you have. Okay? I'm just going to say that and leave it there. This king understands the prophetic role, understands how prophets are supposed to operate. The king rebuked this prophet because something about this evil, wicked king understands that this prophet is lying. Wow. I'm telling you, if you don't understand that Jehovah is in absolute control of every single thing, listen, you cannot go wrong when you stand with Jehovah. You cannot go wrong. You may do wrong. You may do something wrong. You might be chastised for that thing. Jehovah he's going to fight for you. He's going to always bring you back, correct you and bring you back. That's how he operates. As a matter of fact, as I say that, if we go over to the previous chapter in 1 Kings 21, we see this narrative where even Ahab, as evil and wicked as he was, Jehovah had pardoned him, right? Jehovah had forgiven him for some wickedness that was done on his behalf by his wife. Jehovah had overlooked the wickedness, right? If you read the narrative in 1 Kings 21, where Ahab was, as I said before, he was wicked from the get-go. He wanted this vineyard belonging to another man, Naboth. And he went to Naboth and told Naboth, listen, I want this vineyard. I want it to be part of my possession. I'm going to pay for it. Whatever you ask for, I'm going to give it to you. No big deal. Listen, I just want it. This is a king, okay? Naboth said, nah, I ain't want to sell it. I don't want to take my family's. This is stuff I inherited from my family. I don't want to part from it and give it to you for no amount of money. And Naboth refused to sell it or give it or submit to the king. And the king, even though he was upset, even though he was mad and stuff, didn't do anything. He went back to the castle. He was upset. He was crying. He was sad. And his wife, who was 10 times more wicked than he was, maybe even more, asked him, why are you crying, man? Why are you so sad? You don't want to eat, nothing? And he told her the story. She said, okay, don't worry yourself. I got you, bro. You're the king. What man should refuse you? In any righteous biblical context, in any righteous manner, in any righteous play with this story, the king would be in the right. Because he's the king, okay? But in this context, in this play, this is a wicked, evil king. Who was refused a piece of property. And his 10 times more wicked wife tells him, don't worry, I got you back. Which is kind of if you look at it for what it is, it's kind of what a wife's supposed to do with her husband. She's supposed to back him up, if you will. She's supposed to stand with him. She's supposed to be there for him. Okay? And that's what she did in a wicked, evil way. Because she set up Naboth to the point where she had him killed unjustly and took his land and gave it to her husband. Okay? That's what happened. And then in verse 17 of 1 Kings 21, we see the word of the Lord came to Elijah, the Tishbite, right? Saying, arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, who dwells in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, where he has gone down to take possession of it. You shall speak to him, saying, listen, Jehovah says, have you killed and also taken possession? You shall speak to him, saying, Jehovah says, in the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth, dogs will lick your blood, even yours. Ahab said to Elijah, have you found me, my enemy? So Ahab understood right from wrong. He just was stuck in wrong. He was just stuck in evil. He refused to do right. He refused to turn. He refused to repent. He was just stuck in evil mode. Right? And Ahab is looking at Elijah as an adversary or an enemy. Okay? So you see all these words, you see how the words come into play. Ahab, who is wicked and evil, who we in today's term will say he's Satan, he is looking at Elijah, who is a righteous prophet, who is upright according to the will of God. Ahab is looking at Elijah as the Satan. See how, you see what I'm talking about? How we use these words so frivolously? We really don't understand. The wicked man is looking at the righteous man and thinking the righteous man is his enemy. Elijah answered, verse 20, I have found you because you sold yourself to do that which is evil in Jehovah's sight. You see that? You sold yourself. He gave himself over to wickedness. He, not the devil, not Satan took him. No. He sold himself over to do wickedness. He gave himself to wickedness. In other words, he was in possession. He had sole authority. He had sole power over what he did or didn't do. Just like God told Cain in Genesis 4. If you do bad, sin is lying at your door, but you could rule over it. You, Cain, have the power to decide, what are you going to do? So, where does Satan come into this picture? If you have the power, if you have the authority, where does Satan even come? Who is he? Verse 21. Behold, I will bring evil on you and will utterly sweep you away and will cut off from Ahab anyone who urinates against a wall, and him who is shut up, and him who is left at large in Israel. I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, the son of Ahijah, for the provocation with which you have provoked me to anger, and have made Israel to sin. See, you see what I'm saying? And Jehovah spoke also of Jezebel, who is Ahab's wife, saying, the dogs will eat Jezebel by the rampart of Jezreel. The dogs will eat he who dies of Ahab in the city, and the birds of the sky will eat he who dies in the field. But there was no one like Ahab who sold himself to do that which was evil in the sight of, in Jehovah's sight, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. He did very abominably, in following idols, according to all the Amorites did, which Jehovah cast out before the children of Israel. When Ahab, see, listen, I'm painting a picture here. Here is Ahab, who spoke to a servant, admonished the servant, give me the property, give me the land, sell it to me, I'll give you whatever you ask, anything. Come on, man, I need it. I want it to be part of my kingdom for whatever the reason. I'm the king, I just want it. No, man, this is my family inheritance. I don't want to part with it. His wife comes, he go home, he crying, he fussing, he having a pity party. His wife come, see him in his pity party. Man, you're the king. Why are you acting like that? Well, this man over there, he don't want to give me the property. He don't want to sell it to me. You don't want to. Don't worry, I got you. I'll take care of that. She set him up, have him killed. Right? Have him killed. And tell the husband, King Ahab, hey, land is yours, property is yours, go do what you want with it. He in the property, the word of the Lord goes to Elijah. Elijah come, prophesy against him, tell him what's going to happen to him and his wife. This is where we are. Verse 27. 1 Kings 21:27. When Ahab heard these words, he tore his clothes and put sackcloth on his flesh and fasted and lay in sackcloth and went softly. You heard that, right? Did you hear that? We ain't done. We ain't done. This is what Ahab did. He's a king, okay? Verse 28. The Lord's word came to Elijah, the Tishbite, saying, see how Ahab humbles himself before me? Because he humbles himself before me, I will not bring the evil. Wait, this is Jehovah speaking. This is not Satan. This is not the devil. This is Jehovah. I will not bring the evil in his days, but I will bring the evil on his house in his son's days. See? So we talking at length about the Satan. We go to church, we as in not me, but you guys, some of you, a lot of us go to church on Sunday. Go to the Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, the Baptist Church, the non-denominational church. We go to church on Sunday, every day, Saturday, whenever we go to church. And we talk about the devil and the devil this and the devil that and the devil trying to steal your house and steal your car and steal your wife and steal your children and steal your money and the devil, the devil, the devil, the devil. We talk about the devil so much. Who is the real enemy? Who is your real enemy? Is it really the devil? I say this because my contention with us all, including myself, is you are your own worst enemy. Because you refuse to obey what Jehovah says. You choose to believe what man say against what Jehovah says. You choose to do the things you do. You choose that. The devil didn't make you do it. He didn't make Ahab do anything. He didn't make Jezebel do anything. Yes, there are things that may influence your decision, but you better make sure that those things are not evil, wicked things. You better make sure the things that influence your decisions are the counsel and wisdom of God, wisdom of Jehovah, the word of God, things that you do. You can't decide to do something and then blame somebody else. You divorce your wife, you blame the wife. You divorce your husband, you blame your husband. You have a bad relationship with your kids, you blame the kids. You have a bad relationship with your whomever, your boss or your co-worker. You blame. It's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. You take no responsibility for anything. That's where we are in humanity today. Nobody wants to assume responsibility for anything that they do. It's always somebody else's fault. Here, again, let me read the verse. 1 Kings 21:29. That's the verse. 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 29. Or 28 and 29. The word of the Lord. The whose word? The voice of God spoke to Elijah, saying, hey, you see how Ahab humbled himself? He got the message. He got the message. And because he got the message, because he humbles himself, I am not going to bring this evil that I am going to bring. I remind you, hello, I will bring this thing on him, on his house. My word shall not come out of my mouth void. It shall go forth and accomplish the thing that it was sent to accomplish. I'm just not going to accomplish it in his time because he humbles himself. I'm going to drop it on his son. You see what I'm saying? But it is Jehovah who is going to be his adversary, his Satan per se. Ooh, you just call Jehovah the devil. I didn't know such thing, you foolish soul. I did no such thing. But if you think that Jehovah is not going to be your adversary in your foolishness, I am willing to say to you, you lie. That's why, as a prophet of Jehovah, as a man speaking what thus says Jehovah, I send out these warnings to every single human being who hearing my voice right now. Be careful what you do. If you think Satan is your enemy, you probably don't know God. So you think you Mr. All That. You think you Mr. King, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. whatever. You think you is Mr. All That. And ain't nobody could get in your way, or ain't nobody could stop you from doing what you want to do. Be careful of what you perceive. Because there is one who sits up high, but he looks very, very low. And he sees every single thing. And he's not playing games. And in the narrative, that's why 1 Kings 22 starts the way it starts. They continued 3 years without war. So this is the story of Jehoshaphat and Ahab is 3 years after this situation. 3 years after Ahab and Jezebel had Naboth killed for his vineyard, God gave him 3 years of peace. And then he starts back up talking about, Ramoth Gilead belongs to us. Yeah, we know that. Well, let's go up and take it. Let's go up and take it, Jehoshaphat. Okay. Let's get some prophets then, Jehoshaphat said. Let's get a word from God. And we know the story. And here comes Micaiah. And he says, Micaiah, why? How much times have I said to you? How much times I have warned you, which what adjure means. A bigger warning, a greater warning, because he's a king. Listen, man, I done tired of, you're telling your child, boy, I done tired, tell you, stop doing that thing. Next time you do that, I'm going to whoop your butt. And Micaiah, how much times have I adjured you that you don't tell me anything other than what the Lord said, what Jehovah says? Because even the wicked person, as wicked as Ahab, even him, he ain't that far gone where he don't know what right and wrong is. See? Even that far, he know. Even he could discern. Wait a second. He never agrees with me. No, he agreeing with everybody? Nah, something ain't right with that. Even the wicked man discerns something ain't right. So we go back to 1 Kings 22 and 19. Okay. Wait, let's go to verse 18 before. Wait, where did he go? Adjure you, verse 16. We got to read 17, 18, and 19, man. It's too good to just let it slide. So after he warns him about not talking to him exactly what God says, this is King Ahab, the wickedest, evil king. This is Micaiah's response. Micaiah said, and he said, verse 17, 1 Kings 22 and 17. I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains as sheep that have no shepherd. And Jehovah said, these have no master. Let them each return to his house in peace. So, Micaiah, the prophet, comes and says to Ahab, the wicked, evil king, yeah, go up. You will have victory. God is on your side. The wicked king discerns, wait a second. You lying. You ain't telling me the truth. How much times did I not say to you, I need you to tell me the truth, everything that only what Jehovah says. Here comes the truth. Micaiah tells him the truth. No. Listen to what Ahab says. you can't get past this stupidity. The king of Israel now said to Jehoshaphat, see, didn't I not tell you he doesn't prophesy anything good concerning me? Listen, it's crazy how simple or how simply stupid people can be. I'm not saying this to put anybody down, but really? Really? Verse 19, Micaiah said, therefore, hear Jehovah's word. I saw Jehovah sitting on his throne, and all the army of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. Jehovah said, who will entice Ahab, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? One said one thing, another said another. Verse 21. A spirit came out and stood before Jehovah and said, I will entice him. Let's see what that word spirit is meaning here. What's the essence of that word? Ruach. Ruach. To smell, scent, perceive, odor, accept. Of a horse, of delight. Primitive root. This is BDB definition. Brown, Driver, Briggs. Properly to blow, that is to breathe. That is to breathe. To smell. By implication, to perceive. Figuratively, it means to anticipate, or enjoy, or accept, or smell, or touch, or make quick understanding. Does this have any solid perspective? Does this give you an idea that this entity is a solid, this is like a real person or a real thing? It's a spirit, a breath of air. So something blowing in the air, something blowing in the wind says, I will go and deceive him. A word perhaps blowing in the wind says, I will go and deceive him. And Jehovah says, oh, verse 22, how? How will you deceive him? The spirit says, the word in the wind says, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. Seems like this took place in the assembly of the 400 prophets at that time. It seems that's what it would be like. Right? So this wind, this word was sent out to the 400 prophets to be a lying word, a false prophecy, if you will, among the 400. Why? Why would it be a lying word? Because it's a wicked, evil king whose heart is set on doing wicked and evil things. Why am I going to stop you? That's all you want to do, wicked and evil things. Why am I going to stop you? No. The old folks had a saying, give him rope, let him hang himself. When they see kids or anybody doing something wrong, and people trying to stop, people saying, boy, don't do this, boy, you need to stop, boy, boy, boy. And the boy insists, or the girl insists on doing what she want to do, or what he want to do. Old folks used to say, leave him alone, give him rope, he's going to hang himself. See? That's the same thing God does. You wicked and evil and insist on doing wicked and evil, he's going to try to get you. He's going to try to stop you. He's going to reach out to you in one way or the other. If you keep refusing to listen, he's going to be like, all right, man. Okay, go and hang yourself. Go on, continue in your evil. He's not going to stop you. So you will go there and keep being evil. And think that you don't have to stand responsibility for your wickedness because you could blame everybody else. That's what we do. We don't look at ourselves. We blame everybody else. It's the devil. He made me do it. Okay. So who is the real enemy? Who is your real enemy? Is it the devil? Is it Satan? I say no. I say your real enemy is you. Your real enemy is you. And if you don't straighten up and fly right, as the old folks would say, if you don't cut your cards straight, as the old folks would say, you keep doing evil. What you think is going to happen? See, I had a license plate years ago, and I've told this story before, but it bears repeating. I was in Miami, and I went into a Christian bookstore, and I found this license plate holder. And boy, I can't find another one since that. I can't find it nowhere. But the holder says, the black frame that the license plate go in, there were words written around that frame. Top and bottom, not all around it. But the top and the bottom of this is what was written on the frame. If you believe that there is no God, you had better be right. Listen, I'm going to say this in closing. Okay? If you believe that there is no God, you, sir, you, ma'am, had better be right. You had better be right, because the old folks would say, there's a saying, hell hath no fury as a woman scorned. Well, you keep scorning God and running from God and keep doing wickedness as if there's no repercussions. You keep treating your wife or your brother or your sister or your mother or whoever, you keep just being wicked and blaming everybody else. It's their fault, it's their fault, it's his fault, it's her fault. You don't look yourself in the mirror like Michael Jackson say, I'm talking to the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. Yeah. That's what God is saying. Look yourself in the mirror like Paul say. If you go in the mirror and see yourself and then walk away and forget what you've seen, you in for some misery, bro. Sis. I'm telling you. It's incumbent upon us as human beings to understand God is real. God exists. Listen, there is nobody anywhere on the face of this universe could convince me that God is not real. I've seen too much. I've heard too much. You can't tell me that there is no God. You cannot. You could tell it. I guess you can tell me, but there's no way you could get me to believe that. Because God operates by the counsel of his own will. You can't do anything to convince God of anything. What you have to do is to be consistent, or try to be consistent in your search and your reach and your walk with him. You have got to do it. In our lesson today, Ahab just couldn't cut the mustard. And we see the flexibility of God. We see God, how he operates to the most wicked king ever. He said, oh, I see how you humble yourself. Go read the story of Manasseh, the king of Israel. Another wicked king ever. He was bound and he was so wicked that God stirred up an enemy against him. Yes, I said God did. Jehovah did. And the enemy captured him and bound him in fetters and chains. And even he, when he humbled himself, God cast an eye on him, and God watched him, and God said things about God, offered forgiveness and stuff like that. I'm telling you. That if you insist that God doesn't exist, and insist that your wickedness will never be repercussed, if that's a word, wow. If there's going to be if you believe there's going to be no repercussions for your evil doing, if you insist on believing that and insist on doing wickedness and evil, bro, sis, all I can be is be like, yo, stop. Don't think like that. Don't think so at all. I'm telling you, for your own good. We'll take the story back up next time around, because it's important for us to have the correct perception. The devil may not be all you think he is. But we've been bombarded and taught, and he's been talked about for so long, that we've been swayed and drawn away from the reality of truth. But thank God for his word, that his word is still there as a smidgen of hope, as a stronghold, that when we take hold of it, it's like the word of the Lord. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. It's the word of the Lord is a strong tower too. The righteous will run in and they will be safe. because they lay hold of the word of God. It will be a lamp unto their feet and a light unto their pathway. Thy word, O God, would I hide in my heart, that I would not disobey you. That even if I disobey you, I would repent. I would come back to you and say, forgive me. That I would pay for the bulls with my words. And that you, in your awe, in your greatness, in your magnitude, in your magnanimousness, will forgive, can forgive. You always, it's like you set in that position. It's like you like you're ready, like a runner in a race. Your set position is forgive. That's your set position. On your mark is like, for you, I'm talking about God here. For God, being on your mark is like getting ready to run to forgiveness. It's like getting ready to forgive. That's where that's how he's channeled himself. Like he's on a race to forgive. But he's not in the on the mark position. He's in the set position. He's like, so all you have to do is turn and pay for the bulls with your words, according to Hosea. And just repent and say, God, this is foolishness I'm doing. I am crazy in my heart. Please help me. I repent. I turn to you for help. Because guess what? He's the only one who could help. And look, he's so set that all you have to do is turn. And the gun ain't go off yet. There's no false starting with him. He is on the set. The gun ain't go off yet. You just turn and he take off. Coming to you. Ready to embrace you. Ready to forgive you and me and anybody. Look at the wickedest Ahab. Look. Go read the wickedest Manasseh. Go read. Turning your Bibles to Numbers chapter 6. I pray that whenever you engage in this ministry, whenever you engage in this channel, I pray that you will hear something that would spur you on in turning to God, would spur you on in your race towards God, would spur you on and motivate you to hold on to him or ask him to keep holding on to you. That's mostly my prayer, is for him to keep holding on to me, because I don't even trust me. It is so very important that we move towards this perception. And in my humble opinion, this is the right perception. This is the best perception any human being could acquire, is to see things through his eyes, is to try and see things through his eyes, not through the pastor, the prophet, the teacher. No, it's through his eyes. If he says something, he's got to know why he said that thing. There's got to be a reason, and the reason is not evil. It's always good. There's a good reason why he said, I will bring this evil on Ahab's son and not on Ahab. Because Ahab heard what Elijah said, and he humbled himself. There's got to be a reason why he gives instructions. There's got to be a good reason why. We can't be correct and he is incorrect. It could never be like that. Unfortunately, in human society today, there's too much of that. There's too much of we right and he is wrong. There's way too much. And that sets us in a bad position. That sets us in a bad place. Numbers 6 and 22, are we there? Let's read Numbers 26 and 22 through 27. And Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, This is how you shall bless the children of Israel. You shall tell them, Jehovah bless you and keep you. Jehovah make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. Jehovah lift up his countenance towards you and give you peace. And then he closes by saying, So, or just so, or like that, they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Until next time, Shabbat Shalom. Passover is coming up. I think Passover is scheduled for weekend of the 15th, the 14th and the 15th, or the 15th and the 16th, somewhere there. Or the 16th and the 17th is Passover. That's the actual day. And then the Feast of Unleavened Bread begins on the evening of the 17th and ends on the evening of the 18th of April. All right. So Passover is upon us. The season, the time, the Moedim is upon us. Let's get ourselves together and let us be willing to partake in this year's Passover feast in whatever form that we partake in it as, and Feast of Unleavened Bread. Don't forget, get rid of all leaven for that week. All right. That's typical how it's done. Bread and cakes and crackers and cookies and stuff like that. With normal breads, not the unleavened bread. If you have the cookies and wafers, the unleavened cakes. All right. With that, Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, adios, buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches, buen nuit, arrivederci, peace, deuces, however you say bye. Shalom. See you next time.